All right, folks, Yishai Fleischer here. Guess what? There are people who get it, and there are heroes in this world. That's right. And one of those heroes is Congressman Brian Mast, a friend of mine, congressman from Florida, lost both of his legs in Afghanistan in 2010. He's a veteran. He won the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. And as I said, he became a congressman without those two legs. And now he has become recently the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. So he's moving up, and he's got his head on straight. He understands the battle that we have, not just with the terrorist enemy, but with international organizations that support terrorism, support anti-Israelism, and of course, eventually anti-Americanism as well. So let's take a look at Brian Mast and what he has to say vis-a-vis the ICC, the International Criminal Court.
I rise today in support of the Illegitimate Court Counteraction Act, a bill that I am proud to have worked on with my colleague and my friend, Representative Chip Roy, a bill that sanctions international criminal court officials and their families and anybody who is assisting them. Why? Because they are targeting America's allies who are right now the front line of fighting to bring American hostages home from Gaza. America is passing this law because on November 21, 2024, the International Criminal Court's pretrial chamber issued warrants for the arrest of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel's former defense minister Yoav Gallant. Let me explain that in a more detailed way. America is passing this law because a kangaroo court is seeking to arrest the prime minister of our great ally, Israel, who is not only responding to an enemy which conducted a genocide, killing as many men, women, and children as possible, even beheading some of them on October 7, 2024, but an enemy who still holds 100 hostages, scores of bodies of those that they murdered, including 7 of my fellow Americans. Let me say that again. Israel is the tip of the spear in bringing the fight to an enemy who currently holds and has killed our fellow Americans. Israel has conducted this war with as much restraint as war can allow. In the face of horror, they have showed humanity. We know that for Israel, any civilian dying is a tragedy. And we know that for Hamas and the Palestinians who support them, civilians dying is quite literally their strategy for victory. Hamas' strategy uses hospitals and schools as bases for combat operations. Not some fighter accidentally walked into a hospital for 5 minutes carrying their machine gun. No. They build hospitals and schools into fortified launching points for attack. In clear violation of the laws of armed conflict, Hamas deliberately targets civilians. What the ICC is doing with their arrest warrants is legitimizing the false accusations of Israeli war crimes in order to do something. In order to stop the overwhelming success of Israeli military operations. Now, Mr. Speaker, I don't care if a person is a terrorist in a cave or if they are a lawyer in The Hague. If they are getting in the way of bringing home our Americans or bringing home our allies who are, as we speak, in this very moment, bound, blindfolded, tortured, raped, enslaved, starved, facing execution, if you are getting in the way of bringing them home, then we will give you no quarter, and we will certainly not allow you to be welcome to American soil. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
Okay, so can you say it any clearer than that? There's terrorists, and then there are folks that support terrorists, and sometimes they wear suit and ties, but they are the Jihad support crew, and they're sitting at The Hague in the Netherlands, and they, have the fancy degrees, and they have the suit and ties and a nice haircut. But the bottom line is that they are Jihad supporters, and they hate Israel, and they hate America, and they're pro-Jihad, and they make it look like Israel's doing the war crimes. So Congressman Brian Mast is proposing this bill, this law, that would criminalize basically the travel of ICC members, as was, by the way, in the past. The ICC's got to know its place. Let's see a broader understanding of this very same Congressman Brian Mast. He gave an interview to Channel 14 News, and I think that it really encapsulates a way of thinking, which I wish would be even broader in the United States and around the world, and even in Israel. Let's take a look.
Thank you very much for this interview. First of all, congratulations on your new appointment as chairman of House Foreign Affairs Committee. You're one of the few people who understand that the head of the snake is Iran, not Hamas, not Hezbollah. What will be your foreign policy against the Iranian regime?
It's what President Trump puts forward, and that's to say maximum pressure. Maximum pressure involves a lot of things. So it's making sure that Israel has the support, and not just the support in terms of what we are sending to be used, but the way that we are there, whether in the Suez Canal or the Red Sea, or take your pick of places, being on the front line, shoulder to shoulder.
What do you think will be the difference in the incoming administration?
It's important to also explain that Brian Mast is a veteran. He understands the region, a veteran of fighting in this region. He understands it. You see, he's got a conception of how forces are laid out around here, where the bad guys are. And so he's saying, Israel, you are going to be empowered to fight Iran and to fight the forces. And he's going to support the Trump policy, but he's going to also push for it in the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
In relationship with Israel compared to the previous administration?
I think the difference could be summed up very shortly. Yes will be yes and no will be no. For President Trump, he's not going to play games where it's a half measure because half support is going to Gaza and half support is going to our allies. It doesn't make any sense to support our ally who is at war with our adversary and to support our adversary as well. And in the end, it also creates a situation where you don't beat your adversary to the point that they are ready for a long-lasting peace.
Okay, so that's a very important point, which is, we got to win. We got to win decisively and not play around, not pussyfoot around. It's got to be real. It can't be milquetoast. We got to really defeat the bad guys for real. I didn't like that last line that he said about peace. I don't know what he means about that. Who's there to make peace with? Hamas? There's nobody to make peace with on that side. We've got to defeat them and defeat them roundly.
I'd like to ask you a personal question. As someone who almost sacrificed his life for America, where do you get your motivation and strength every morning to stand up and fight for the security of the U.S. and Israel?
My father raised me to believe that way and to live that way and to instill the same thing in my boys and my daughter. We fight for the right causes. Nothing's going to make us back down, and that makes us all American.
But why for Israel?
Well, it's part of the most important causes. I say it in this way many times, that Israel is the most important aircraft carrier for the United States of America anywhere around the globe. Israel is constantly acting as the greatest ally for us in the region. Our common bonds that go beyond not just common enemies, but the way that we look at the world. And so those common grounds and the way that we work together to secure what are common interests for us, it's just the best relationship.
Trump said all of them until January 20, or the fire of hell will open. What do you think he means?
I think he means what he says. All of them. Everybody. Every person that's alive. Every single thing that was touched on October 7, it will be returned. You have until then to get this done. And if you don't, you will realize what it means when President Trump's yes is yes and his no is no.
You moved many Jews worldwide when you appeared after October 7th in IDF uniforms in Congress and received quite a bit of criticism for doing it. Do you think the criticism of the IDF from the Democratic Party and international body like ICC, ICJ are justified?
Absolutely not. Israel is number one conducting a war of defense. Israel was attacked on October 7th, and many people forget this. The enemy has to be defeated to the point that they surrender, to the point that they recognize they will never rise again in the way that they have.
You visited before and after October 7th. Is there a special moment that you never forget?
The first time I visited Israel after October 7th was by invitation to go and visit with amputees like myself that had been injured in the war in Gaza. And so for me, it was going hospital to hospital, visiting with these individuals and having the opportunity to stand on the bedside where somebody had stood on the bedside for me before, saying, listen, life's going to go on. You're going to be all right. You're going to get out there and you're going to do everything that you decide to do in life. When you do, you're going to go out there and you're going to affect your country in a way that you didn't have the ability to do it before. So don't let them down. And that was the message to soldier after soldier.
We saw that the Biden administration wanted to prevent Israel from entering Rafah and Lebanon. Prime Minister Netanyahu decided to enter anyway, which led to the elimination of Sinwar and Nasrallah, which you supported. What do you think Israel should do now and in the long run to protect itself?
Don't settle for a premature peace. Because if Israel would have settled when they said, hey, you can't go into Rafah, guess what? All these things wouldn't have happened. If they said, listen, you have to have this war concluded by Ramadan. If you don't have it concluded by Ramadan, then all hell's going to break loose and it's not going to be okay. Israel didn't pay attention to that. And we have Sinwar and we have everything that's happened since.
I know that you have special relations with some Israeli veterans. You send videos to soldiers in Gaza. As an American veteran, what do you think about the Israeli veterans?
I think they're amazing individuals. For all of us that put on a uniform in defense of our country, you're cut from a different cloth. And that's unique and it's special and very few are capable of it and very, even less undertake those actions. And so when you find those brothers and sisters in arms, you find real friends that you can count on.
What message would you like to convey to the Israeli people?
Stay in the fight. Okay. Be vigilant in the fight. And always remember that as you're in this fight, you're not in it alone.
Chairman Mast, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for standing with Israel, and I wish you millions of luck in your new job. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the questions.
Well, I just have to say, wow. You know, I want you to know that before he was congressman, I knew him as a friend. He came to Israel as a volunteer. He came to my studios. We hung out. I filmed him. What can I tell you? I met a man who lost his legs in war and continued to fight for his country and loves Israel, sees the situation clearly. And he says to us, stay in the fight. And he says to folks who lost limbs, you're going to have opportunities that you didn't have before. And I just think that's a hell of a man. And that's a hell of an inspiration, a hell of a human being. Brian Mast, we salute you and good luck in your new post as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the House. And we're going to keep fighting, as you say, stay in the fight. And let's have also another thing, which he didn't say, which is just plain clarity. See things with moral clarity. Moral clarity will yield total victory. Moral clarity yields total victory. All right, folks, thank you so much for being with us. Let's get inspiration from Brian Mast, and let's keep fighting for Israel. That's why I recommend you check out fightforisrael.org. We've got a lot of stuff that we're doing there, including the Biblical Highway, spreading the Abrahamic faith, restoration of Israeli holy sites, tractors for the Holy Land, broadcasting truth and courage, fightforisrael.org. You could also check out an easy way to support us, which is buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. All right, those are great ways to be part of the story and part of the broadcast, part of the fight for Israel. It's just that simple. You want to fight for Israel like Brian Mast? Fightforisrael.org and keep fighting. Subscribe to our channel. Recommend it to friends and be part of the story. God bless you, folks, wherever you are. Lots of love, lots of strength. And shalom.